My name is David. I'm an engineer on the security engineering team at Chime, and I've been here for almost 3 years. Today, I want to talk to you about Monocle, which is an internal Rails app that we've built at Chime, which helps us get everybody to do the right thing for security, specifically engineers. So we're going to look at some of the scaling challenges we've had at Chime for security specifically, how we approached those in terms of gamification, education, and appreciation of people doing hard work or work that's typically not appreciated, and some of the results we got from leaders and among engineers, and how you could get started at home or at work, I should say, in an easier way than what you're seeing here. Like, I spent, as you heard, a few years here at Chime, so this is definitely not something you finish in a weekend. So in terms of our challenges at Chime, we recently tripled our engineering team. So that's a lot of people to learn things. We've created a lot of new services, and with every new service, there's different baseline security configurations that you need to set up. So we've filled those. And we've also completed a number of audits, PCI, SOX, things like that. And as you can imagine, those were somewhat stressful at times. Raise your hand if you've ever had a painful audit. Okay, wow, that's like 95% of the audience. So we want our teams to focus on security. I think we can all agree on that. But how do the teams actually learn security best practices? You can't just rely on them, reading things online and teaching themselves. So also, how do we get everybody to secure their services without burning ourselves out with all of the JIRA tickets that we create, and burn our TPMs out, technical program managers out, with all of the pinging that they have to do to get people to address the tickets. And then also, how do we even know whether our services are secure in the first place? There's a lot of security tools that we're all using, and it's hard to figure out. You need something to fuse all that information together. So I want to give you a little illustration of what it's like without Monocle or a tool like it. So hi, this is David. I'm from the security team. Can you please resolve these 23 vulnerabilities in your service? So raise your hand if you've sent a message like that. Okay, nice. Yeah, and you can imagine that this kind of message might make the engineer receiving it feel sad. Some of the things going through their head are like, I didn't know I was supposed to resolve these vulnerabilities. Like, why didn't somebody tell me about this before I got in trouble? So to try and address that, one thing we do is we send a message to their team channel and we say, hey, your score dipped below a B, because we're giving everybody grades, or not the people, but their repositories, a grade between an A and an F. And we want everybody to be above a B if they're a production service. So we send them a message. Looks like that's big enough on the screen. And we tell them, hey, do this and this to improve your grade. They can click through and learn more about it. When they're on their GitHub repository itself, we are showing their grade on the README. And the reason we're doing that is because people spend a lot of time on GitHub, and looking at their own READMEs, they'll notice, oh, my score is not good. I should make that go up. And so the majority of our teams are really proactive about this, which we love, and we don't even have to ask them to follow the rules. So here is what it looks like once you click through the badge. You can see a number of the different rules, score factors that we are grading people on. And each one has some points associated with it. This is recalculated every night based on API calls to different places. And you can click to expand an item and learn what you specifically need to do to fix that item. And some of the key items that reduce our audit workload are approved base images. These are getting rebuilt every week or so to make sure that the vulnerabilities that are patched the patches are pulled in. We make sure that everybody has at least one pull request approval, making sure you don't have like a single actor threat type thing, but also making sure there's no bugs and things. We want people to resolve the vulnerabilities that we find. So if you've got higher criticals, we're telling you, hey, please fix those. And we want to make sure that everybody has tests and passes those tests before they merge. It seems like a basic thing, but some repos don't have that. So we show a good amount of information to leaders as well about how our security posture is. So this is a screenshot of the homepage of the app, and you can see a breakdown of how we're doing in terms of how many people are above a B. And this screenshot, roughly, this is a fake one, but gets presented at our monthly engineering review meetings, which if you don't have one of those at your company, you should maybe tell people have one, and then you can join it and present security stuff. Basically, the attendees of that are like all the engineering managers and engineering leaders up to the CTO. So on the right, we've got a breakdown of which score factors are passing or not. And that's really helpful because sometimes you've got a new initiative. You want to make sure, for example, that code climate is enabled for everybody. Or let's say that we've got no security vulnerabilities for GitHub security alerts. Then you can easily click on whichever bar and find all the repos that are not doing that thing, and then just go track those people down. That's pretty helpful. So we've also built this thing called Risk Advisor, which evaluates every pull request to make sure people are following our 4 most important rules. Some of those I already mentioned, but the important one that's not mentioned is dependency confusion. That's when you accidentally download a dependency from the internet instead of your private version of a gem or dependency. So the way this looks is on your pull requests, you see a status. It's kind of small, sorry. But basically it's showing you, yes, you're good to merge. And if you click through, you can see the rules that were evaluated and see that you're ready to merge. But let's say you're failing some rules, then this is what you might see as an engineer on the page, a little red X on your pull request. And let's say they didn't notice that and they clicked merge anyway. We're not blocking the pull requests because we want people to still be able to get their work done. So that means that they might merge without passing the rule. And if they do, Monocle will detect that and automatically create a JIRA ticket to track it. So it'll also send a message to their team channel so that the whole team can just be aware of something that happened that wasn't supposed to and help resolve it. We found this really helpful. With JIRA, you can query all of the past forever's worth of JIRA tickets and then very easily satisfy your auditing requirements. So we realized that even though Arkady here, who's giving a talk later today, gives a really interesting onboarding session, sometimes employees, engineers will forget that Monocle even exists. So we wanted to create more awareness for Monocle. And so one of the ways we did that is we came up with the idea of sending scorecards. And we send these scorecards to Slack channels, and it shares some basic information about the repo and how they're doing. And we noticed that teams celebrate that they have good scores. And that's really nice because a lot of us probably have coworkers who are doing important work, like keeping all the packages up to date, but they're not really appreciated because it's kind of really annoying work, and it's not, as cool as building a new feature, let's say. A quick note about these Slack channels that we've got. We've found it extremely helpful to create a convention-based Slack channel naming scheme. So hashtag gh-repo name. And when we have it set up so that Monocle will create the channels for us and add the top contributors, but that's not really necessary. You can just do this manually. And, all of your tooling can just send messages to those channels without having to figure out the name. You don't need an ownership directory or a spreadsheet or anything. So it would be very bad if our members lost trust in us and we lost the financial data that they've trusted with us. So does gamification work? Does it work for us to give grades to all these repos? And I would say yes. It really helps us get a view of how is engineering doing, how is security doing, and are people following best practices and culture guidelines? So we've seen that leaders can see what our security posture is. Engineers are not overwhelmed by having to check 5 different security tools. Probably we don't even give them access to all of those tools in the first place. And we're saving about 2,000 engineering hours a year on auditing. That's time that they would have been spending trying to use GitHub's improving but maybe not perfect search capabilities, and clicking through just manually to check stuff. So this is a graph. The blue is how many score factors we've been tracking, and that's been going up over time. And the green is how many repos have above a B. And both of those have been going up and to the right, which is perfect. So we're safeguarding member data, people are improving security, and leaders can see the numbers going up. We've also found that it's much easier to roll out new security initiatives. So every time we've got a security initiative, all the structure for notifying people and delivering the words to people, so that the instructions, all of that is already there with Monocle. So we just need to focus on what are the instructions and then following up on the few teams that don't already follow our instructions on their own. And just briefly on that, our TPGMs, technical program managers, are just very happy with this as well. They have a lot less spreadsheets that they have to track, and they don't have to ping all of these engineers and engineering managers. So if you are thinking about where to start for yourself, think about where does security intersect with engineering, and start simple. It could just be a cron job, and it gets some basic information out of the GitHub API, and then it sends Slack notifications to teams, and maybe you have another channel where it sends reports. There's something beautiful about sending Slack messages, which is that you have a chance of critical hit, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, an engineer might have 5 minutes free, a junior engineer or just anybody, and then they see the message and they fix it. And it's done. You didn't have to make a JIRA ticket and track it. And all of that tracking can be more expensive than actually fixing the item in some cases. I would also recommend checking out OSSF's All-Star and more generally Backstage as terms of solutions that you could try setting up at your company. Here's a little photo of the architecture. So everybody is visiting the Rails app. The scores recalculate every night as they talk to our different data sources like GitHub, StackRox, Jira, CircleCI, and then that gets stored into Postgres. This is roughly how Risk Advisor works. We're subscribed to webhook events from GitHub, and we validate that they came from GitHub, and then we forward information on to Open Policy Agent, which runs these Rego rules and tell us whether or not the person is passing the rules that we've written. And, based on if they pass them or not, we create a ticket, notify people, and update the GitHub UI. We are authoring those rules inside of the Monocle repo, which, makes it simple as well. Talking a little bit more of the philosophy of where you start, it's a good idea to find engineers where they already are. So ideally, that might be in their editor because it's the cheapest place for someone to fix something. We haven't really gotten to that yet. Next would be GitHub. Their READMEs and pull request statuses, that's what engineers are looking at all the time. And in Slack, because at least for our company, that's where everyone is hanging out all the time. They're not looking at email so much, or at least me. And you want to give them instructions that don't include security jargon. So ideally small items that they can follow. And if you can, help them celebrate their investment in security with their team. That's what the scorecard is about, and these messages to the team channels help with that as well. So if a tree falls and no one hears it, did it make a sound? Yes, your security is definitely better after these things have happened. And so showing everybody that they did happen is a really nice thing. So yeah, we can move on to questions in a second, but if you have something you want to ask us, you can send us an email or mention me on Mastodon. And probably someone's going to ask this, but yes, we do want to open source Monocle, but we just haven't found the time yet. Hopefully this year, we'll see. And Chime is looking for an engineer to work on data security. So consider reaching out. This is definitely my favorite job ever. Thanks.